Hey there everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at transport in plants, IGCSE biology. Circulatory system. Circulatory system is a system of blood vessels with a pump and valves to ensure one-way flow of blood. Now the pump, they are referring to the heart, which pumps the blood, and the valves which ensure one-way flow of blood. The vessels are the tubes through which the blood flows, and the pump is the heart which keeps blood flowing through the vessels. Oh, and the valves are only in veins, by the way. We'll look at that, don't worry. Valves are structures that keep blood flowing in one direction, so they are something like this, and prevents its backflow. Note that the blood vessels that take blood to the lungs and back are called pulmonary systems or pulmonary vessels, and the blood vessels that take blood to the rest of the body and back are called systemic system. And now we have two types of circulatory system. We have the single circulatory system and the double circulatory system. In the single circulatory system, blood passes through the heart only once in a complete circuit, and this happens in fishes. In double circulatory system, as the name double means two times and single as in once, blood passes through the heart twice in one or on one complete circuit, and this happens in mammals. We'll look at that, don't worry, don't stress yourself, we'll look at that. Figure 1, single circulatory system. Single circulatory system is, with the single circulatory system, yes, deoxygenated blood flows from the heart under high pressure into the gills. In the gills, blood is oxygenated and pressure is lost. From the gills, oxygenated blood flows with low pressure to other parts of the body. Blood flows or travels slowly in the blood of a fish. Now what is saying that from its systemic capillaries, as they go to the heart, deoxygenated blood goes under low pressure from the body of the fishes, under low pressure. At the heart, since it's pumping it, the pressure increases after it's pumped from the heart. So as it's going here to the gills, it's still deoxygenated blood, but it's in high pressure this time. Now as it reaches the gills over here, it needs to slow down so that it can be oxygenated, which causes its pressure to decrease. So low pressure, but as it gets oxygenated here, it moves through all the way to the systemic capillaries as oxygenated blood, but in low pressure. That's all it was saying. Then we have the double circulatory system. Double circulatory system. With the double circulatory system, deoxygenated blood flows from the heart under high pressure into the lungs. It gets oxygenated there, pressure is lost. From the lungs, oxygenated blood flow with low pressure back to the heart for more pressure. Blood flows under high pressure to the other parts of the body, blah 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 blah. Forget all of that. Let me explain it with a proper nice diagram. Okay, let's say we have our heart over here, our heart here, our lungs here, our heart here again, and our body over here. Now what's going to happen is that our body, deoxygenated blood will move to the heart, deoxygenated blood under low pressure. After at the heart, since the heart is pumping the blood, it will have high pressure, wouldn't it? High pressure, but it will still be deoxygenated blood. At the heart, it slows down, which causes the blood pressure to be lost, but then the blood gets oxygenated though, in low pressure. It comes back to the heart. Now it's oxygenated, and from the heart to the body, it's oxygenated, as we said, and it will move under high pressure because the heart is pumping the blood. High pressure. That's all. You do not need to memorize vena cava, blah 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 blah. Right now we'll look at the parts of the heart and the heart vessels around the body. So just remember this diagram that I used to explain. Okay, and it says blood flows or travels faster in the body of a mammal due to the pressure, high pressure from the heart to the body, and the high pressure from the heart to the lungs. Now we must also look at the advantages of double circulatory system or a single circulatory system. Obviously, double circulatory system increases the pressure of the blood because blood flows faster in the mammal body, because pressure moves under high, like blood moves under high pressure twice, right? And in single circulatory system, blood moves under high pressure only once. That's why oxygen and nutrients in blood are supplied quickly to organs of the body. Yes, because they are moving faster, oxygen and nutrients will be supplied faster. Moving on to the heart. The heart is made up of muscles called the cardiac muscles. Yes, this could come in MCQs. What is the heart made up of? Cardiac muscles it is. These muscles contract and relax regularly through life. The heart is divided into 4 chambers. First chamber, second chamber, third chamber, and fourth chamber. There are 2 upper chambers called the atria and 2 lower chambers called the ventricle. So number 1 and number 2 are called atria. Number 3 and number 4 are called ventricles. We'll look at their names, don't worry. The heart is separated into deoxygenated blood in the right and oxygenated blood parts by a muscle called septum. So you see this line I drew over here, that's basically the septum. Veins are vessels that carry blood to the heart. So let's say we have our we have our heart here. So veins will carry blood towards the heart, and arteries do the opposite. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. And now the biggest vein in our body is called the vena cava, and the biggest artery in our body is called the aorta. The aorta carries blood from the heart to all parts of the body. Yes. Now structure of the heart. Now this is where most of the students gets confused and they look at the diagram, they get scared. How are we going to memorize all of that? Don't worry, it's not that difficult, but as you practice more questions, as you read, you get used to it. So that should not be a problem. So okay, let's look at it. So this part is called the right atrium. This part is called the right atrium, and this is our left atrium. We even looked at it here. See? So this part, number 1 is our right atrium and number 2 is our left atrium, right? Then our number 3, which is our right ventricle, and our number 4, which is our left ventricle. Now you must have noticed that even though right is on this side and left is on this side, when you're looking at it from the angle of biology, your right, okay, let me write right, left when you are watching it, but then in biology, this side is your right and this side is your left, which is why this is the right atrium and this is the left atrium. Then we have our septum. This is our septum. Looks like it isn't labeled, but yes, it's our septum. Now we need to look at our inferior vena cava and superior vena cava, which brings blood towards the heart, and our arteries, which is the aorta, which takes blood towards the heart. Oh, and we also have pulmonary veins here, not forgetting, which bring oxygenated blood from the lungs. Then we have valves. Let me just clear this. Valves, so we have 4 main valves. So this is the tricuspid valve and this is the bicuspid valve. Then we have pulmonary valve. Why? Because the artery that goes out from here is the pulmonary artery. And then we have the aortic valve. Why? Because again the blood that goes from here is in the aorta artery, or just aorta, yes. And that's it. This is in a very 3D form, but this is our 2D form. It's not 3D, but yeah, you get me, right? One more thing is that the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve are called semilunar valve. Their collective name is called semilunar valve, and tricuspid and bicuspid valves are also called atrioventricular valves. Yes, they may seem big names, but trust me, you'll get used to it. Next, we have veins, arteries, and valves of the heart. Pulmonary arteries, yes, we looked at it. Arteries carry deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs, where they get oxygenated, obviously. Pulmonary veins that carry oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atrium of the heart. Now, if you look closely, it's pulmonary artery. It's pulmonary vein. Why? Because pulmonary has to do with the lungs. So arteries of the lungs, which means that they carry deoxygenated from blood from the heart to the lungs, and veins are veins of the lungs which carry oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. Then we have the tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve opens to allow blood from the right atrium into the right ventricle. So we have our right atrium like this, our tricuspid valve, and the right ventricle. This opens to allow the blood flow and then closes to prevent the blood from flowing. Then we have the bicuspid valve. Is the same thing, the same function as tricuspid valve, but in the left atrium and the left ventricle. Then we have the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve. So pulmonary valve like this. It's located between the right ventricle and pulmonary artery, and the aortic valve, I think it goes like this or something like that, I'm not sure, located between the left ventricle and the aorta. Next up, we must note that all valves allow blood to flow in one direction. Therefore, they prevent liquid blood from flowing backwards. Very important. Very, 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 very important. Why doesn't blood flow backwards? Which structure prevents the backflow of blood? Valves. Just valves it is. Alright. Then tricuspid, yeah, we looked at atrioventricular and semilunar. Now, difference in muscle wall thickness. Atria and ventricles have different functions indeed. The atria receive blood from either the lungs and other parts of the body, whilst ventricles pump blood out of the heart and all around the body. Therefore, ventricles have much thicker and more muscular walls than atria. Let's go back to the diagram to explain this. Okay, let's clear all the ink. Okay. Now they are saying is these are the muscles around the atrium. Very thin. But then these are the muscles around the ventricles. These are thicker than the muscles around the atriums. Why is that so? Because the atriums are just receiving blood. So blood just enters and stays here. But then the function of the ventricle is to pump blood all over the body. So it requires a lot of energy and a lot of power to push that, to generate that force, to send the blood to all over the body, which is why the muscles help in creating that force, which is why they have thicker muscles. Get that? Alright, let's move ahead. And in case you don't understand my explanation or you're having any difficulty, just put it in the comments and I will definitely reply. Then difference between the left ventricle and the right ventricle. The left ventricles have thicker walls than the right ventricles. Why? This is because the left ventricle pumps blood to the rest of the body under high pressure, whereas the right ventricle only pumps blood to the lungs and under an almost low pressure, which are much closer to the heart. Let's say we have our heart here. Forgive me for my extremely terrible drawing. And then we have our lungs somewhere like this. It's the right ventricle that's pumping blood to the lungs, which are very close by, which is why they can send the blood in less blood pressure. But then the left ventricles are pumping blood all over the body, which is why they would need high pressure. And how will the high pressure be generated? When their muscle walls are thicker. That's the only difference between their muscle walls. Then we have to look at blood flow. Okay, deoxygenated blood enters from the vena cava, both superior and inferior, into the right atrium, If the tricuspid valve opens, allowing the blood to flow right into the right ventricle, then the muscles pump the blood, which causes the pulmonary valve to open, allowing the blood to flow from the pulmonary artery all the way to the lungs. After it reaches the lungs, they get oxygenated, then come back to the come back to the heart using pulmonary veins. It enters the right atrium. The mitral valves open. Mitral, another name is bicuspid, just so you know. The bicuspid valve opens, letting the blood flow right into the left ventricle. Then the blood is pumped. The aortic valves open, allowing blood to flow to the aorta and then to the rest of the body. Easy, very easy. No need to stress yourself. Then we have the heartbeat. Most people's heartbeat is around 60 to 75 beats per minute. A good way to measure your heartbeat is to check or take your pulse rate. Pulse rate is the expansion and relaxation of an artery caused by the heart pushing blood through in 1 minute. This means that your pulse rate is the same as your heartbeat. Pulse rate is equal or the same as your heartbeat. Very important. Two good places to check your pulse are your wrist and the side of your neck. You may try that right now. You feel your veins. The activities of the heart can be monitored using ECG, electrocardiograph, pulse rate, and listening closely to the valves, closing of the valves. Really important, because this question comes: how can the pulse rate be measured? Number one, ECG, electrocardiograph. Number two, pulse rate, measuring your pulse rate. Number three, listening to the closing of your valves. Really important, you should know these three. How does the heart beat? Now this question comes for 6 marks, sorry, not even 3, sometimes 8 marks. So really important that you pay attention. The heart beats as the muscles in the walls contract and relax. When they contract, the heart becomes smaller, squeezing blood out. Blah blah blah. Let me use the diagram to explain, which will be better. So we have our diagram 1, diagram 2, and diagram 3. So what happens is that deoxygenated blood flows from the vena cava into the right atrium. The tricuspid valve opens, allowing the blood to flow into the right ventricle. The muscles of the atria relax, allowing blood to flow from the heart into the veins at the same time from the lungs. The muscles in the heart are relaxed, which is why blood flows into the heart. The muscles over here in the right atrium and the left ventricles, not atrium, really sorry, are relaxed, which is why these valves open. When they contract, when they're about to contract, these valves close, and so do these, while these valves open. Okay, yeah, you get the relationship, don't worry, we'll come to that as well. Then the valves in the veins are forced shut by the pressure of the blood, flowing back into the veins. Because they're shut, they're coming to contract. These shut, so the blood doesn't flow back over here, instead flows here. The semilunar valves remain shut. The muscles of the atria contract, squeezing the blood into the ventricles. Muscles and walls of atria contract. The muscles of the ventria remain relaxed. Blood is forced into the atria, into the ventricles. Now once these two atrioventricular valves close, the heart comes to contract, and as it contracts, these two valves open, allowing blood to flow under high pressure outside the heart. That's basically it. I would recommend you read over it once again, because I don't really think I'll be able to explain it that efficiently or effectively. Yes, but I do understand it. But yes, yeah, let's just move on to the next part. I'm really sorry about that part. I wish I could explain better. In fact, I'll make another video on it, don't worry. Blood vessels, you have 3 main types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. In arteries, they have a smaller lumen than veins, which have a larger lumen. Lumen refers to this part. They have thick and strong walls, more elastic tissue than veins, relatively narrow, No valves because blood flows under high pressure. Interesting. Veins have larger lumen refers to this again, than arteries. They have thin walls, less elastic, relatively wide, and they do have valves because blood flows under low pressure and closer, much closer to the skin, which is why if you see when you check your hand, you see your green veins. Sorry. Moving on to veins again. Veins have valves in them to stop the blood from flowing backwards. Yes, these are the valves. This valve is open and this valve is closed. Valves are not needed in arteries because blood moves under high pressure, so there's no chances of it flowing back. Blood is also kept moving in the veins by the contraction of muscles around them. Example, your legs. Yeah, it's mentioned here. Your legs. As you move, your leg muscles contract and relax. This causes the blood to flow upwards. Or it helps push. It acts like a force. It pushes the blood. Then we have capillaries. They function by taking oxygen and nutrients and other materials to all the cells in the body. Capillaries are much smaller divisions of arteries and veins. Okay, so we have arteries, then we have arterioles, then we have capillary. So this is where capillary comes. Then we have venules and we have veins. You get it? Yeah. They connect arterioles to news to allow the exchange of materials dissolved in the blood. Very thin, very narrow. They're only one cell thick. Remember that. You may get a question like this, which and then they will draw a cell or something. Sorry. They will draw a cell inside and ask which blood vessel is that. You see a cell inside, which means it's a capillary because it's only one cell thick. Yes, easy. Let's move ahead. Naming blood vessels. Naming blood vessels, you should be able to do that, but don't worry, I'll explain it. If you just give me a second, I'm looking at a particular thing so I don't confuse all of you. Yes. This is the vena cava from the head, which brings blood. Okay, let me draw again. This is our brain, or I mean the head, and this is the vena cava which brings blood to the heart. Then we have veins from the liver, the renal vein, and the vein from the leg, which connect together and come to the heart. That's the vena cava. Then we have the artery to the head that goes like this. Oh, and let's not forget the pulmonary artery here, and then the pulmonary vein. These are two different. Like blood flows here in this direction and this flows here, which are kind of opposites. Then we have our aorta, which takes blood to the liver, to the renal artery, and then the artery to the legs, and blah blah blah. Now let me just tell you the important thing you need. The artery or vein or the blood vessel, the blood vessel which takes blood towards the vessel which takes blood towards the kidney or away from the kidney is known as renal vein or artery. And the same for liver. The artery or vein that takes blood towards or away from the liver is called hepatic. 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 Renal vein is for what? Renal vein is for the kidney. I think I didn't mention that. Then, as we know, as lungs is associated with pulmonary is associated with lungs. Similarly, with the small intestine, it's hepatic portal vein. And yes, I think you should be fine if you know that. Moving on to blood. Blood is a liquid that contains cells. The liquid parts of a blood is called plasma. The components of blood are blood cells, ions, nutrients, urea, hormones, and carbon dioxide. You do not need to memorize that. Then we have red blood cells, white blood cells, blood platelets. Oh, we forgot oxygen. Okay, components of a blood. Yes, we said this is our red blood cell, which has a cell membrane but no nucleus, cytoplasm containing hemoglobin. Then we have white blood cells. White blood cells, we have two types. We'll look at them. And then we have platelets. This is a white blood cell. Okay, we'll come back to this slide again because I don't want to confuse you all until we look at white blood cells. Yes, three body cells in the body: platelets, white blood cells, red blood cells. Red blood cells look like this, biconcave. Their function is to carry oxygen with hemoglobin throughout the body. When oxygen combines with hemoglobin, it becomes oxy. Oxy coming from oxygen, what is oxygen? Oxygen, and hemoglobin coming from hemoglobin. They are biconcave or in disc shape, red in color. They are red in color due to the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a blood protein which contains iron. Red blood cells do not have a nucleus. Do not have a nucleus. This is to make room or space for more hemoglobin and more oxygen. They have large surface area to volume ratio, which speeds up their diffusion of oxygen in and out of their RBCs or red blood cells. Their small size enables them to squeeze through the tiniest capillaries. We know capillaries are only a cell wide, and due to their small shape of RBCs or red blood cells, it allows them to move through. And then we have white blood cells. Their function is to fight diseases in the body. They do have a nucleus. And they are of two types: lymphocytes and phagocytes. Now, in lymphocytes, the WBCs or white blood cells fight antigens or pathogens by producing antibodies. They produce antibodies which fight the diseases, and they have a large round nucleus that almost fills the cell. Very important. What's the difference between lymphocytes and phagocytes? Lymphocytes have a large round nucleus which fills the cell, and phagocytes has a lobed nucleus. We'll look at the lobed nucleus, but we must remember that the nucleus of the lymphocytes is almost filling up the cell, and the lymphocytes produce antibodies to fight pathogens. Alright, antibodies. Then we have phagocytes, which fight pathogens by engulfing and digesting them. This process is called phagocytosis, and they have a lobed nucleus. This is very important. Lobed nucleus. This is their lobed nucleus. And how do they fight pathogens? By engulfing and digesting them. Next, phagocytosis, the process of engulfing and digesting pathogens. We have our virus or bacteria here, and then we have our phagocytes over here. It engulfs, it goes over it like this from the side, okay, over here, and then eats it up, right? Then it digests it and then releases it. Then it digests it into smaller pieces over here, and then it releases it. Next up, platelets. Platelets are blood cells that help in blood clot. Really important. Blood clotting is a really important part. We must know how blood clots. It also comes for around 6 or 4 marks. Platelets, they are very small fragments of cell, no nucleus. They help in blood clotting and blah blah blah. Let's look at blood clots and finish it up quickly. When there's a cut through the skin, blood plasma is exposed, obviously. When it's exposed, it releases a soluble blood protein called fibrinogen. The fibrinogen are taken up by the blood platelets, and then this fibrinogen is converted to fibrin, which is insoluble. Because fibrinogen is soluble, it easily moves away with the blood. But because the fibrins are insoluble, they do not move away from the blood. They remain there and clotted. This mesh traps all the red blood cells and other material from flowing outside and from a cut. That's all. No need to stress. And that's all for the video. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. I know you all are very mean, none of you subscribe, but I guess no problem. See you in the next video. Till then, tada.